Well, now to domestic politics. Tonight, new polling shows Prime Minister Julia Gillard's big sell on the carbon tax has failed to arrest her government's slide in popularity. In fact, the coalition has registered a record lead over Labor in a Roy Morgan poll conducted in the wake of Labor's carbon tax announcement. Political correspondent Tom Eagleton has more from Canberra.
Julia Gillard warned the Labor caucus not to expect a bounce in the polls after last Sunday's carbon announcement. In fact, there's been a significant slide. A dramatic 6-point dip in Labor's primary vote will be hard for government MPs to ignore. A 4-point uptick for the coalition has it almost doubling Labor. The two-party preferred picture shows the coalition opening up a massive 20-point lead, a record for the Morgan poll. The government's been saying it won't be ruffled, however strong the headwinds, and it's got little choice but to press on with its plans to introduce the carbon tax.
I think this week we've written a new chapter in Australia's reform history. Pricing carbon pollution will build a stronger economy for Australia for years and years to come.
The government's been hoping generous compensation schemes for households and industries will turn support in favour of the tax.
Tony Abbott's been through Whyalla in the past, whipping up fear, instilling concern in people that without any basis whatsoever about their job security.
G'day.
But as the Prime Minister's been touring the country on her sales pitch this week, it's been Tony Abbott's attack on her credibility that's caused the biggest problems.
Why did you lie to us?
There's been question after question about her honesty in ruling out a carbon tax before the election.
And I think that explains the added level of feeling in the community. There's not only the usual arguments about the merits of the policy, but there's the feeling amongst a very big section of the population that they've been ripped off.
And he's raised the stakes by promising a double dissolution election if the Greens block his pledge to rescind the tax.
I was asked the question, what would you do if you needed to use all your constitutional options, and obviously they're available and they'll get used if necessary.
Bob Brown's raised the stakes further by guaranteeing he'll block attempts to rescind the tax, effectively daring Tony Abbott into the electoral equivalent of nuclear war. The Greens leader predicts he'd win more seats in a double dissolution, though he accepts Labor could lose enough to hand Tony Abbott control of the Senate.
That's the Constitution, that's democracy. But boy oh boy, he's got a few big hurdles to jump on the way, and he shouldn't take the Australian voters for granted.
But there was a hint of remorse too from Senator Brown, who blocked Kevin Rudd's attempts to bring in an emissions trading scheme.
And we had misgivings about that, but we did the right thing.
It's harder to see a tougher situation in which a minority government could find itself. Bob Brown dictated the introduction of the carbon tax, and so far it's spelling electoral disaster for Labor. Another poll or two like today's, and Labor MPs will be asking themselves, if they're not already, how far they're prepared to go to defend a policy they had no hand in writing. Tom Eagleton, Late Line.